Hey, everybody, and welcome. I'm Haley Mitchell-Haugen, and I am the editor of Sheila-Na-Gig Online and Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. And we're very excited to have everybody here tonight. We are celebrating George Franklin and the release of his new collection, A Man Made of Stories. So we're all here. All these books, everybody's holding up their books. That's great. And also tonight we have a selection of readers from our forthcoming fall issue of Sheila-Na-Gig Online, which should be out in just about a week or so. So we got a sneak peek at that. So welcome to everybody. A lot of you folks out there in poetry land already know George Franklin, and he's dear to our heart at Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. This is our fourth poetry collection that we've published for George since about 2017, I guess. So he keeps cranking them out, and I keep publishing them. So excited to have that opportunity. So this is his fourth collection with Sheila-Na-Gig, and his first book with Sheila-Na-Gig, Traveling for No Good Reason, was the winner of Sheila-Na-Gig Editions manuscript competition in 2018, and that's how it all kind of began with us. He also has a chapbook through Sheila-Na-Gig, What the Angels Saw, What the Saint Refused, and his book of poetry essays about poetry. Okay? I'm not going to say craft because he doesn't like that word. Short essays on writing. Okay. So that's Poetry in Pigeons if you haven't checked that out as well. He's also authored the dual language collection Among the Ruins with Jimena Gomez, published by Katakana Editions, and the chapbook The Travels of the Angels of Sorrow by Blue Cedar Press. He's also co-translated with Jimena Gomez Last Day, Ultima Dia, and he's co-author with Gomez of Conversations About Water. I'm not going to attempt the Spanish because I always butcher it, so just lovely translations there. All right, George, we're going to let you take it away. So happy to have you here and finally celebrate this fine fourth collection.
Thank you, Haley. That's one thing that I think everybody knows is it's so amazing to work with Haley on a book. So if you've got a manuscript, Sheila-Na-Gig is the place to send it because she's just amazing. And she's just somebody you can totally trust. So thank you. Thank you for working with me and putting up with me over and over again. So thank you. And it's a lot of fun to be here tonight. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. I really appreciate it. Anybody that knows me knows that I like story poems. I like poems with a lot of narrative in them. So with that in mind, it's probably a good idea to start tonight with a story that everybody knows. The title of the poem is called The Flood, and it's about the animals that were left behind by Noah. After the ark had left its improvised dock, the waters having risen quickly, the animals not selected or boarded in time were abandoned in treetops and on high hills. They watched as the great ship drifted south or north or maybe west, its outline shrinking in their sharp eyes in the waves. But the animals, being animals, said nothing. For sure they knew it was unfair. All the fish would survive, even sharks and bottom feeders. But the parrots, with their red and yellow feathers, would tire eventually and fall out of the sky. And the lions and elephants would sink to the ocean's muddy bottom. Sand would come later. Spotted deer raced wildly for a while on the steep slopes, their hooves splashing water behind them. Dung beetles bored tunnels into whatever earth they could find, not because they thought it would save them, but only because that was their habit. A few hares tried desperately to procreate for the same reason. Why does no one praise the nobility of the creatures rejected by Noah? Many had waited in line for days. Some, the gnats and flies, had spent a lifetime buzzing in place, waiting to be admitted. They must have known that even the highest mountains would be submerged. But the wet, slow-moving tigers only paced in a circle, growling at nothing. And as ordinary pigeons continued to preen their gray iridescent feathers, and a troop of brown monkeys with large eyes and delicate fingers still picked lice from each other's fur, and stared at where the ark had been. The next story may be a little bit more complicated. There's a backstory to it that I should fill you in on. In Sevilla, there is a garden and a ruined palace called Las Dueñas, and still owned by the Duke of Alba, and it's not really kept up very. As I say, it's kind of ruined, but they make efforts at keeping it up. The garden is certainly lovely, and Machado grew up there. Um, the poem is called "In the Afternoon at Las Dueñas," and it starts with an epigraph from Federico Garcia Lorca. And I won't try to do the Spanish for you for exactly the same reason that Haley didn't. But I'll tell you that the translation is, but I'm no longer myself, and my house is no longer my house. Bougainvillea grows purple on the wall, purple sunlight reflected on stucco, on the yellow clay of walkways between the orange trees. In the reflecting pool, I see the same white hair and beard, nose a little sunburned, face unprotected, puzzled. A lost dog, it's looking for its owner, but no one has come to claim it. The sun sinks lower than the rooftops, darkening the leaves of the orange trees. The purple bougainvillea sinks lower on the wall. Perhaps I've also turned purple in the shade of the orange trees, in the light of the bougainvillea. Unseen, this face moves lightly up the staircase, through the tiled hallways. It doesn't glance at the statues. It doesn't notice the paintings. The face does not belong to anyone now. The oranges it tasted were sour. They shined from the tree limbs, sour orange stars, in the daylight of the bougainvillea. The shade of green leaves, darker than black, the white wall of the convent that closed long ago, the patter of the ticket seller in the afternoon heat, date palms taller than the house and the walls, in the heat of bougainvillea shedding light like a dying star, in the acidic perfume of white blossoms, in the darkness of leaves and the yellow clay of walkways that twist through the garden. I raced to catch up with you, your pink blouse and scarf the color of roses, disappearing between orange trees and the last sunlight of the bougainvillea, between a fountain and a face that used to be mine. Okay. I told Haley that I would be reading a couple of Jimena poems. Here's one of them. When Jimena is sad. When Jimena is sad, the red anthurium fades to white. The flags in front of schools hang drenched on their flagpoles, and a burnt smell clings to apartment hallways. When Jimena is sad, the dogs lie on their mats and stop barking at squirrels and strangers. The black and white ducks take shelter under oak trees. Clouds sink like a sudden frown above the cheekbones of sky and ocean. When Jimena is sad, the crows in her poems fly off the page, nest in the light fixtures, caw from staircases. The fly who'd found heaven on an apple core buzzes hopelessly against the window. The garbage chute refuses to open, and the elevator on the right gets stuck on the 11th floor. Jimena, don't be sad. The world is fragile and depends on you. In reality, they're all Jimena poems, just for the record. Um, the body becomes more beautiful as it ages. Don't point out scars, wrinkles, or veins rising from the back of your hands. Even if that were true, it's unimportant. As it ages, the body ripens, becomes sweeter, calm. Fingers touch differently, slowly, learning whatever can be learned from an arm or cheek, to know what feeling means. That shiver arching your spine when my hand moves between your shoulder blades, down toward your waist. Our eyes are not guarded as they might have been when we were younger and didn't understand what the world expected, what we could give. Yesterday we walked through a room of Rembrandt portraits and self-portraits, of faces that didn't flatter or resist age, but stared grimly back at us. Visitors crowding the gallery, looking for something beyond a lesson in art history. We wanted to meet his eyes, so dark we could barely make them out, to see what he had seen, and maybe we did. We didn't discuss it. After dinner, we read, as we often do, then turned off the lights and held each other even more intensely than when we first met. Rembrandt painted himself just as time painted him. But the body isn't only decay and fever, the anxiety of creditors, poverty, and lawsuits from discarded lovers. As it ages, the body ripens and becomes more beautiful. As it ages, there is sweetness, calm. Now, Rick had asked me to squeeze in a poem, and I was going to squeeze it in about here. It's called Who's to Say? Who's to say these faces in the clouds aren't gods, peering down from Olympian heights, beings sketched in vapor, vanishing into horses and hillsides, vertical landscapes, emptiness or of sky. Buddha and Moses feared images. So did Plato. How real the shadows lamplit on the walls of the cave of our cave, in the corners of the living room, galaxies of dust turn in their slow waltz, almost invisible, weightless as dreams. The dog twitches in his sleep, chasing something smaller than himself, something smelling of open fields in summer, of musk and shit. He opens his eyes confused, the way I am, when I'm trying to hold on to wherever I was before my eyelids cracked to let in morning. Chiaroscuro of curtains. The faces dissolve into time, not a process, just a way to measure what the world does and we do. Last night you had fever and asked me to hold you as you slept, to keep you warm. Our bodies wrapped into each other, and you stopped trembling. I fell asleep on my side, my legs warmed by yours, finding comfort against your feet. Nothing is ever how we remember it. And Peter Mladenick had asked me to read What Gamblers Know. What Gamblers Know. Gamblers are more honest than the rest of us. They know we can only take what luck gives. That when it's good, it's not because some virtue rests on our shoulders like a soldier's epaulets. And when it's not, there's no point to second guess or blame ourselves. Sit morose in cafes or on padded stools in diners, watching in the steam swirling above the cup the shapes of lives we could have had and didn't. Gamblers know blaming doesn't help. It doesn't make the silver ball fall on red or black when the occasion warrants. It doesn't make the card we need slide obligingly into our hands, or a stack of chips grow like corn stalks out of dry soil. Sometimes bad luck lasts for years. Then one day there's a perfect stillness. The light reflects from puddles in the street, but it doesn't blind us or make us wince. Then a breeze just strong enough so we notice how it moves over the earth, like dice on green felt, like a smile on the face of a player who bet on 0 or double zero and somehow won. How it moves like luck itself, a wave that picks us up and eventually lets us drop. A gambler would know you didn't enter my life because of anything I said or did. A gambler would say it was luck, good luck, a perfect spin of the wheel, the card I would never have thought possible. He'd say, don't ask questions, don't imagine you did something to deserve this, or worry that you didn't. He'd say it was luck, that's all, and he'd be right. Let's see what else we can squeeze in. Okay. Um, this one is called How to Be a Tourist in Barcelona. On your second afternoon in town, do nothing. Take a long bath. There's a bathtub. Dress in clothes that are relatively clean. Go sit on the back terrace and look up at the colors of the towels and sheets hung on the neighbors' clotheslines. Remember the boxes of wooden clothespins your great aunt used and the lines strung across her backyard. Here, blue and red shirts are hanging from the railings of balconies, along with fuchsia dish towels and gray sweaters. On another balcony, there's an herb garden. You're too far away to see what kind. That terracotta pot might be rosemary. To the east, the sun hits some corrugated roofing and casts a scalloped shadow down the side of an unpainted building. The bricks show through in places. In the courtyard between buildings, you will find nothing designed by Gaudi, only the cries of gulls and pigeons, and a radio playing a pop song you don't recognize. One building is being renovated, and men in long sleeve t shirts and baseball caps are working on scaffolding in the courtyard. There are no monuments, but it will make you remember Orwell, who thought that for the briefest of moments Barcelona was the best society humans had created. It will also make you think about what followed. That was only 80 something years ago. Those buildings stood here then. Their windows opened onto the street battles between anarchists and communists, socialists, nationalists, and inevitably fascists. The world did nothing to help. Orwell died of tuberculosis in England, but not before his prose eviscerated Auden for referring to the necessary murder. Several pigeons, not a flock, move from one roof to another, where there's more sun. The sleeves of a black turtleneck flap lifelessly in the breeze. The sky is a pure, brilliant blue that denies history exists and that suffering matters. It doesn't even care about architecture and cathedrals. It only knows its own permanence. Stare up at it and watch the gulls and pigeons. There will be other afternoons to be a tourist, to visit La Sagrada Familia, the museums, and to take the cable car up Montjuic. For now, just sit on the terrace. Okay, the next one is page 120, balconies. Beyond our lives are other lives, ones we might have lived but didn't, cities we visited asleep, read about in guidebooks or glossy magazines, photographs of olive trees older than Chartres, cafes where waiters know already we'll be there for hours, our cups empty, staring in through the glass at passers-by under umbrellas, running from the cold November rain. Beyond our lives are cobblestone streets, flowing up hillsides, rivers in reverse. At the top, stone fortifications, constructed by Caesar, by the Huns, Visigoths, Moors, or Napoleon. Below, landscapes famous for battles or poets. Machado might have stood here and watched the sun sink to the west. Beyond our lives are the lives we've lived, forgotten. Magnolia blossoms outside my bedroom window, the street I'd stare at late at night, cars going somewhere, the Chinese restaurant on Milam Street that stayed open till dawn, or later apartments in New York and Boston, metallic smell of steam from the radiator in winter, the remainder tables in bookstores to blame for my odd education, and your life by the Rio Cali, the steep green hillsides, salsa playing on a radio, crazy traffic in the evenings, civil war and threats on the telephone. Beyond these lives are the lives of our desire. Madrid, Velázquez at the Prado, Goya, pulpo a la gallega, bread warm from the oven, wines we've never tried, neighborhoods we've never made our own, balconies where we look out on all the lives we haven't yet imagined. And the other Jimena poem that I want to squeeze in here is Jimena Refuses. Jimena refuses to accept that we are old. She says people live longer now, and we're still young. After all, we still work, still follow politics, still cook and make love. If we walk a little slower or treat our backs and knees with more consideration, what difference does it make? She watches the ducks who spend long afternoons in the parking lot outside my door. Water from the air conditioning drips down the rain spout. They wade in it and drink what they can. How do you tell the age of a duck? None of them seem geriatric. Last year there were ducklings who followed them and stumbled toward the golf course or the street. Sometimes I see a bundle of broken feathers by the curb, but that one may have been careless, not old. It was different with my dog. I could see he had aged, grown thinner, lost his teeth and appetite. I don't want to be old the way he was. I'd rather nod my head and agree with Jimena. People live longer now. We're still young. And I will read one more poem. This is the one that's on the back of the book. We decided not to do blurbs this time, just to put a poem on the back. And if you like that poem, chances are you'd like the book and you might want to buy it. So the poem's called A Question. In the Gothic quarter, our friend pointed out indentations cut like a tally in the old Roman wall. There had been a market here, and the butchers had sharpened their knives against the gray stone. Centuries of sharpening, the way canyons are shaped by water, the way we're shaped by deaths, marriages, divorces, by the books we've read and remembered, by the ones we wish we remembered. Mi amor, are we the stone shaped by so many knives, or are we the knives sharpened by stone? Thank you.
And we chose not to do those blurbs because George has written so many books, he's run out of friends and colleagues he can plug for.
Yeah, it's true. I'm embarrassed to ask people now.
Thank you, George. As always, you know we love you here at Sheila-Na-Gig.
Thank you.
And we have been celebrating George's most recent collection, A Man Made a Story. So thank you so much, George.
Thank you.
We're going to move now into our invited mic portion of the reading with selected contributors from Sheila-Na-Gig's Fall 2025 issue, beginning our 10th year of online publication. So very excited to be celebrating that issue, which will be out very soon. And to start us off, we have Seth Rosenbloom. Hi, Seth.
Hi, Haley. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here and to share the mic with you, George. I'm now extra excited about my trip coming up to Barcelona and to share some time with everybody here on Zoom. This first poem will be in the fall issue of Sheila-Na-Gig Online. You know, I've recently assembled my first full-length manuscript, and it's a book about fathers and sons and being loved and being wanted. And this book kicks off a section in that book, and it's called Multiple Choice. 3 months after my father died, I was in Kane Hall to take the LSAT. And in the statements of whereas and therefore, I felt the motions of his mind, his confidence in logic, and belief that when he gave consideration either to A, the client, B, the firm, C, the law, D, himself, he must conclude, despite inference or implication, that there is one and only one answer, E, none of the above. Barely 5 minutes into the test, its muscularity of reasoning ruled out any desires I had beyond completing the correct oval on the machine-readable form. His death, my finishing college, applying to law school, all of these things happened years ago, back when people used to say committed instead of died by suicide. And back when I used to wonder if I'd do any of the things he had done so well. This second poem comes later in the book. And it is called The Cove. I am resting on a tide-bleached tree, and you are looking for stones, like we've always done, from back when our son was little. But now it's up to us to fill the bucket. Stones lapped smooth by the forces of the moon, pigmented in colors of sibling planets, Mars red, Jupiter's with ghostly rings. You're too far away to hear, and there's no pain, so I won't make a fuss. It's just thumps in my throat. My pulse runs up numbers on the screen of my watch, even as I sit here still. My mind rewalks the trail through the forest to where the headlands open, down the switchback, past fallen old growths, their upended roots spider towards the sky. We're the only ones who hiked here today. Even if there were cell coverage, how many hours before help arrives? So breathe, bear down on the abdomen like the cardiologist said. Listen to the wind rush into this mouth of salinity, this cove, embraced by hills that shoulder hemlocks. Lava born from the mantle, cooled into outcrops, carved to pull starfish and purple anemones, home of endless give and take. Thank you.
I believe I'm next.
Yep, Gene, take it away.
I'm Gene Hyde. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, and some of you may have heard that last September we had this little storm called Helene come through town. There were a lot of dark poems written processing that, but as summer came and things started to grow back, these are some poems I call porch poems from sitting on my porch and looking up the hill where all the felled trees have been removed and life is coming back. So these are two of those. This first one is called When a Tulip Poplar Sends a Friend Request. I didn't see this coming. That upstart sapling reaching out to me while I sit on my deck, binge watching the woods every day. But really, there's a comfort in knowing there's a wood wide web, trees in the ultimate social network, taking all shock and woe in stride, repairing itself in time. Saplings rise, children destined to age with their friends into a canopy, light from the sky doing that magic thing, chlorophyll, the green miracle, all plugged in and growing. Decades from now, the hill will be healed. So yeah, befriend that tulip poplar. Plug in like the world was connected underground, root by root, undaunted by any mischief we can muster. And that appeared in Third Wednesday a little while ago. And this is the one that's coming out in the upcoming issue here. It's just called Watching a Titmouse Part the Red Sea in the Bird Bath. Swallowtails rustle in the forsythia. A tufted titmouse frolics in the bird bath, his antics parting the waves, like Moses in a Cecil B. DeMille epic. Seems like DeMille's Red Sea was just a wall of jello, and I thought about this each time I had congealed salad at some family function, uncles babbling about minorities while aunts swapped recipes. I parted the congealed salad like Moses did, bits of fruit cocktail suspended in jello like Pharaoh's troops who picked the wrong guy to follow. The porch at my uncle's house wasn't welcoming. Hard wicker chairs in the harsh Carolina sun, fading in relevance as I grew older and figured out what all his Jesse Helms stickers meant. I go to the porch to escape the banter, the love entangled with judgment, especially toward the nephew with the bushy beard and long hair, who wasn't scoring any points in that regard, mind you. The titmouse, sufficiently scrubbed, flies off as I sit on my porch, my dog napping in a comfortable wicker chair, while the trees slowly recover from the storm, saplings surviving in their own way, seeing the hole in the canopy they are eager to fill, or will one day, when I'm gone, and my nephew sits here, watching the swallowtails, hearing the wrens and robins, maybe witnessing a titmouse part the Red Sea in the bird bath. And by confession, I'm a relatively new poet. I've never read my poetry to people who weren't my friends before, so thank you all very much.
Hi, everyone. I'm Simona. I'm reading to you from the deep north of California. Always an honor to be part of a book launch by George, and always special to share space and time with Sheila-Na-Gig family of poets. I am going to read the poem which is going to be in the upcoming issue, and then another poem that I just learned will be published. My father's breakfast. He liked to start on the trail early, before the August heat smothered the forest smells. The soil parched, our soles grating against stones, the leaves of home oaks baked and brittle. On his shoulder, a canvas bag carrying ingredients to prepare panzanella. The heel of a 2-day-old loaf for him, 2 slices for me, tomatoes from a villager's vegetable garden, the smell of sun on their red-green skin, basil leaves from my aunt's pot, and a small Coca-Cola bottle half filled with an emulsion of olive oil and vinegar. Conversation turned into a monologue as he eased into storytelling, a small crack in his voice, hiking to the same spot with his best friends before the war, all young, all alive. The area around the spring moist, earth dark chocolate, small tufts of grass like gemstones. Cold water streamed thinly from the mouth of a pipe into a rock-bounded pool, disappeared, absorbed by the thirsty ground. The air crisp and cool, as if we'd stepped into a cave. He lined up the ingredients on a flat stone, using the bag as a mat, talked on about how to wet the bread to soften it without it falling apart. He turned each piece slowly under the stream, crust facing the water, shook to drain it, laid it back on the bag. There was no hurrying him. He halved the tomatoes, brushed their cut surface on the bread while squeezing to release the juice. A few slivers of basil, a sprinkle of salt, a generous drizzle of the olive oil and vinegar, each step measured. I wasn't allowed to comment or touch, only listen and watch. My father's recipe for learning anything. At his signal, I chopped the tomatoes, layered them on my portion, then bit into the panzanella, the bread soft, spongy, the smell of basil and vinegar tickling my nose. While he remarked, head shaking, he didn't like tomatoes that much, only their juice. The one food he ever prepared for me, precious to him, didn't bring us closer. Decades later, my mother dead, he injured, what I cooked seemed hard for him to swallow. At every meal, he reminded me, for all her faults, your mother was an excellent cook. I'd move to the sink, run hot water to wash the dishes, scald my hands to fill a different pain, save myself from falling into the chasm between us. In a nightmare, I see myself acting the same way with a beloved one. The smell of sun on tomato skin makes me wish for an embrace of light to flood the forest. Snowy egrets, both in March, Mill Valley, California. Pools of shallow water reflect the sky, mirror snowy egrets standing in them. When one shuffles to stir up the bottom, dislodge morsels of breakfast, fish, frogs, worms, its feet appear, yellow as the galoshes I wore as a child when sloshing in puddles. One flies low, lands with a splash, breaks the water's mirror. Another one has wispy feathers, breeding plumes, once so prized for women's hats, the birds were hunted to near extinction. Black bodies left to rot, orphan chicks starved. Snowy egrets gather safely here. White brush strokes on marsh water, bright yellow flashes when they step out, showering grace all around. People stop, exclaim excitedly, or marvel in silence. It gives me hope. We can share the space with the birds, hunt them only with our eyes, their plumage as snow-filled, untouched. Thank you so much.
I'm Robert L. Dean Jr., and I'm in Augusta, Kansas, which is close to Wichita. You may have seen on the national news today that Wichita got bombarded with huge hail yesterday. It's like some of the biggest on record for there. Fortunately, it missed us here. Anyway, the poem of mine that's going to be in the next issue, thanks to Gary, is called Pickpocket. Down the boulevard he glides, eyes shifting here, there. Not as easy as it used to be. No unbuttoned suit coat jackets, no loose lapels, bulging pants pockets, oversized handbags gaping. Slim, slick cell phones now, apps tap and pay. Nothing he can really get a grip on till he sees you. Wearing your heart, your emotions, your life on your sleeve, he flexes two fingers, shakes off decades of rust, jostles you slightly, as if by accident, as if simply time passing. And when you no longer remember where you are going, you search yourself, hands fumbling over shirt, jeans, searching for the who of you, the what of you, that night or day or morning when you told someone you loved them, that little boy face a dog licked, or was it a cat, a hand? Was it even you? What did the sky look like when school let out for summer? 5th grade, 4th grade, 6th? What did it look like yesterday, this morning? You look up, you see nothing. You feel neither joy nor sadness, just a lack, an absence. From a pawn shop window, your face stares back, or what you seem to remember is your face, spread out around you, your life, or a semblance thereof, all for just $2. And even that slips away down the boulevard. And for the second one, I'm going to read one that just appeared in the August issue of McLean's Quinterly. It's titled Until the Body Burns to Ash. I'm reading this because George has indicated that he likes this. So anyway, Stonehenge marked us early. Look carefully on the walls at Lascaux and we are there, an ochre star fading on the heads of aurochs. Pliny the Younger saw the fury of our eruption, shook dark tears from his tunic, saved his mother, while his uncle found fortune does not always favor the brave. Copernicus did not take us seriously, though we shimmered of the non-permanence of earthly things. Tycho thought us a new star in vain Cassiopeia's breast. The Wanli Emperor's grand secretary warned of evil omens in the black tortoise. To see us better, Galileo refined the telescope, but mistook us for a union of the god of the north wind and the goddess of the dawn. If you spin the dial at the very large array, you can hear us skip and crackle across the frequencies like Wolfman Jack broadcasting from the moon. James Webb simmers with infrared traces of ancient orgasms, but cannot feel our first embrace nor predict our last. We are fever, we are white hot, we are fire in the night. We peep through your window, twinkle across the union of body with body, welcome the spawning of a new universe. Thank you.
I'm Madlynn Haber, and I'm in Western Massachusetts, and this is the first time I've had a poem coming out in Sheila-Na-Gig. It's called A Mind Grown Old. Where do memories go when they leave a mind grown old and worn? It is apparent as I tell her some news that it's not landing anywhere, not embedding itself for future reference. A tearful gesture of grief fills her face. She covers her eyes with her hands, but I can tell that she will not remember the sad news of an aunt's passing. She will have to be told again and then again. Each time grief will waft through and depart along with the details. She will remember the rings she wore every day when she looks at her barren fingers. Her gnarled hands remind her of her dead mother. She will remember the past with embellishments, seeing herself at funerals she failed to attend. She will use gimmicks and slogans to find her way in the hallways. She will not recall last week's luncheon or the names of her cousins, though she will pretend that she does. There will be no new memories while the old ones repeat. She will rehash arguments she had with her spouse before he died and recall a grandmother rescuing her from being teased in the schoolyard. Old memories transform when there is no one left to validate them. She will ask who will come to her funeral now that so many have died, and she will wonder yet again if the person in the coffin can hear the words being spoken about her. I recently had my first collection published. It's called Seasons of Sorrow and Joy, and this is a poem from there. It's called Photographs. Photos used to go in albums. I have piles of them, some mine, others my mother left behind, old ones with small photos stuck on black paper. Thick pages crumble to the touch. Small snapshots can be enlarged by a scanner, I discovered, blown up, screen-sized, making discernible lost facial features and expressions. Rarely do we develop photographs anymore. They live in cold metal devices available with a touch. I sometimes order real copies to hold in my hand, to raise up to my eyes. My house grows full of them. The refrigerated door is heavy with friends and family, smiling faces, arms around shoulders. Ancestors rest in a china closet. Aunts and uncles lean against candlesticks they brought here on a boat. My father stands alone in his army uniform. In another, he is smiling with my mother on his lap, an image I never saw in person. The many faces of me cover the edges of a mirror. My child and my pets frolic in frames on bookcases and windowsills. My grandmother's image resides on the doorposts. She bestows her blessings as I move in and out. Thank you.
Greetings, everybody. I'm coming to you from the Mojave Desert in California tonight. And thanks to the amazing Haley, my latest collection, Shaking Music from the Angry Air, came out last month. So I'm going to read to you from that. George, thank you very much for that beautiful reading, a poetry that is always rich and rewarding. This first one is called White Coyote. And this poem sits at the intersection of the absurdity of golf courses in the middle of the desert and what was then the approaching end of my first marriage. White Coyote. Coyote, sandbaggers drove you off the back nine today. I saw you slicing low under sugar pine boughs, across concrete and into a flood pipe. I heard you later, bark whistling between your missing teeth as you crashed the country club's Mexican buffet. Coyote, roadhogs ran you off the parkway at noon. I saw you skittering around nervous dodges, across pavement and into a mud ditch. Coyote, years ago you saw crows pluck out both my eyeballs. You heard me shouting 7 days for your help across rivers and into the rich muck. I hear your gush tonight through my open window, yowling about mercy incessantly in the yellow moonlight. Coyote, you stare up at me with primordial blue orbs. You watch me leapdog onto my wooden dresser, across bed sheets and into a dark hall. Coyote, you see me startle and make for an open door. I spring and bolt for the fence gate to give you chase, over dry sagebrush and into an arroyo. I smell the piss of wilderness on your coat. Miles off, instinct says to raid a campsite, summoned by its lurid flame. Coyote, you wheel and race into night's blind beauty, vanish behind night's smoke, a fire I will finally steal for myself. Okay, and then this one, I'm going to say it's for Jean, because this poem is sort of came out of one of my first readings, live readings that I ever did. So that's kind of the main vibration of this poem. It's called My Opening Appearance. I read this poem for an exhibit opening in a local gallery. Nobody knew what I was talking about, but they smiled kindly and clapped when I signaled the end of the poem by smirking. A young woman wearing a red shawl over her black hair introduced herself after I'd finished reading and asked, would I read at the opening of her solo show? I said I would, if I could decipher what I was talking about. She said, you may proceed. Outside, a bunch of skateboard punks broke bottles, threw punches, and cheered in the parking lot. A drunk photographer bought me a beer and explained in detail her true passion was constructing miniatures, exact scale replicas of abandoned places, gas stations and diners up and down Route 66. It struck me that I didn't remember anyone's name, that I couldn't name what my poems were supposed to be about. This leather-jacketed faux beatnik snapped his fingers and said, I had the rhythms right. He knows. He was there. Kerouac's spectacular vernacular, Ginsberg's interlacing ecstasies. How would I know what I should know about whatever it is I'm talking about? I asked. But the gallery was empty and the lights were out. Everyone had gone home to finish drinking. I was standing in a dark space, hearing echoes, and had only poems where the answers to my questions might have been. Thank you.
I'm Paula J. Lambert, and I'm reading from Columbus, Ohio. Always happy to support Sheila-Na-Gig, and happy tonight to support George. The first poem I'm going to read is from the forthcoming fall issue of Sheila-Na-Gig Online. It's called Hang Dog. Hang Dog. And there's an epigraph from Leonard Cohen, Baby, I've been here before. The last time I talked to my ex, I asked him about the dog, and he said, didn't I tell you? The dog, it turned out, who'd run beside the tractor 1,000 times before, one day ran in front of it. I killed her, he said, and the tone of his voice told me he'd never told anyone, and knew it goddamned well, that he'd buried the dog and tried to forget what happened. I hated he'd used me as a way to finally confess, bless me, please, for I have sinned. And I'd be damned if forgiveness was going to come from me. I was too much like the dog. She'd come to us astray, skinny, groveling, a beagle blue heeler mix, bearing the marks of training by a too heavy hand. We coaxed her and fed her till she finally gave in and loved us. A healthy, beautiful, happy dog, we thought. She ran away, and we found her months later, living with somebody else, living with a different name. A hangdog kind of dog who knew she ought to be happy, but wasn't. By then, I was planning my own escape, eyeing the tractor too. And sure, that sounds worse than it was, but I mean, I wanted to die because something was in me that wanted to live a different life. I suffered my own sins for years till I realized I'd done nothing wrong, leaving him, till I realized I too could run free, run wild, could even make love like a man, unburdened, unbridled, on top of the goddamned world. And I enjoyed myself for a while before settling down again, happy finally, free. I mean, what's loyalty really to a woman or a dog, carefully trained or even carefully loved, but an accident waiting to happen? I learned I had something more sacred to offer a man than my body. I understood, hallelujah, the divine nature of what I'd once believed profane. The church teaches you love is something you save for just one person. The church, it seems, forgets how to love the world. And I don't know what that dog believed. I don't know even if she wanted to die, but I do know sometimes you have to die to one world to learn how to live in the next. And damn if that dog isn't the only thing I'm sorry to have left behind. Damn if that dog didn't teach me what it might look like to move on. And the second poem is the title poem from my chapbook, Sinkhole. Sinkhole. And just briefly, I've been writing more and more towards the idea that as environmental catastrophe and climate catastrophe continues to unfold, we still have to continue to deal with all our personal everyday catastrophes. So this is Sinkhole. And the earth washed away beneath the road. beneath the railroad tracks. The asphalt then collapsed into the hole, and the iron rails, spikes, and cars fell into the hole, and houses sometimes, and people's dreams, and people's refusal to acknowledge that what they thought wouldn't be, couldn't be, so was, is, and will be worse and worse and worse. Sky so far from the bottom of a hole, and suddenly so close, there being no further, no deeper for us to fall. Thanks.
Hello. I'm really glad to be here. I'm very grateful to Sheila-Na-Gig for publishing my poem. And I am coming to you from Evanston, Illinois. I should just check people can hear me, right? Okay, cool. So I'll start with the poem that's going to be published. And it's about my daughter and I in the teenage years. It's called Jet Ski Lake Superior. On that day when the waves rose around us, I knew there was no sympathy in them, but we didn't turn back, instead plunged ahead. My daughter was driving, me clinging to her, our eyes stung shut with every slap of a wave. The water, beautiful and indifferent. What if God is like that? No sense of humor, only a force pushing toward us, never hearing my little stories. She gunned the engine over each foamy slope, sliding into one channel and then another. 7 miles of waves, and she took each one carefully, planning ahead. By September, the lake is even colder. We were too far from shore. I have worried about this child. We have screamed at each other, but that day the wind blew words back into our mouths. There was a power in us, stupid as it was to be out there. We should have turned back when we first chugged out of the harbor's mouth into the ominous waves, past an eagle perched on a mooring post, drenched in the spray. But we went anyway, and something changed, hasn't changed back. So thank you. And the next poem is from, I'm also a translator from Spanish to English, and I've got a collaborative project with a poet from Uruguay, Sylvia Goldman, where we're writing poems back and forth to each other in English and Spanish. So this poem begins with an epigraph from her poem. The poem is called In This Hour, and the epigraph is, Hay enormes maneras de leer. There are enormous ways to read. A woman reads in a corner on the edge of the world. Her light is the sun on a string. She reads the shadowed folds of mountain ranges, the fall and rise of water in pursuit of the moon, the scudding clouds. The woman has tired of fires and flags and pestilence, of evil in the cheap robes of fame, of how the mending, the holding together are never mentioned, only the movements of armies. What is missed when they speak of nothing else? The wind is a long vowel. She is alone. No child, no lover, no mother. In this hour, her solitude is not a deprivation. In this hour, her thoughts wheel like a murmuration of starlings over a darkening field. Soon she will pull down the sun for the night, glad no one is there to remark on it, no one there to devour her, no one who would dismantle the sunset, stripping one color from the next until the sky was blank. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Denise, and thank you, George, and thank you, Sheila-Na-Gig. I'm one of the authors of Porch Poems from Sheila-Na-Gig. And this first poem is the one that'll be in the fall issue, so thank you. Upon being asked, when you talk to yourself, who are you talking to? God, I say, or the other side, a familiar stranger in that distant land from where I came. Those conversations, prayers watering my toes, growing my body old and lovely. My mother would think I'm doing too much yoga, reading too many Rumi poems, which, like newspaper horoscopes, may hold truths, but are dangerous, she warned my teenage self as I lingered on the back pages. At church, my mother swallows God 4 times a year. When I was a child, she paid homage to him while sewing Easter dresses, while hiding tomato plants behind her red tea roses by the porch. She's never spoken to me about such things. I hope she talks to herself in her apartment. I hope she knows. And my second poem is called So Much Happiness. Halfway to poet camp, a field of golden flowers bob their tiny heads as the flat road gives way to the curve of joy. In the rearview mirror, the angry woman from work fades into nothing, and my shoulders descend, jaw unclenches. Orange azaleas sing hello in the front yards of quiet people. And I have homemade bagels and fresh cardamom cream cheese in the cooler. I am becoming more real, the land folding me in, the closer and closer to camp I travel, where I will be believed and believe. Paint it forsythia yellow like it was in the early 1900s. The home of the old railroad foreman beckons me. Friends overflow with laughter. Poems everywhere, written, read, dissected. We share the porch with a robin and her young. An indigo bunting lights in a sassafras tree. Just across the trail, above the Greenbrier River, mergansers fly downstream, then turn back with thunderous wings. We will not know what that sound is until morning. Like so much of what we do on the porch, on this swing, in these notebooks. Just around the corner, Elizabeth, the snake, basks in the sun. Thank you.
I'm Catherine Gonick, and I'm in Cold Spring, New York, which is on the Hudson River. And I'm going to read 2 poems that are going to be in the fall issue. I have one about a dog also. Alpha. On your evening walk, you wonder when your dog might decide. She whines, strains at her leash, as if now is the time to take back all she gave up for kibble, a vet, a warm bed, and, of course, your love. Are you still worth her unthinking devotion? The eons you took to let her approach your fire. Tonight might be the night she remembers to ask the moon what kind of wolf becomes a dog and gives you up like a bone you tossed too far. And the second one is Monster in the Ladies' Room. Listening to the uproar over the very idea, you'd think she had never been seen before, was a horror not even imagined until now, that the shouters lawfully barring the door had never read about her like, nor visited a museum, gazed at a statue of Hermaphroditus, like the one at the Ashmolean. A marble torso of a naked woman with small breasts and a small penis who unites 2 sexes in one slim body. This once venerated human figure stands before the viewer unscared, knowing she is sacred. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, for closing up our reading here. We have been celebrating new and returning friends for Sheila-Na-Gig Online's Fall 2025 issue and George Franklin's fourth collection from Sheila-Na-Gig, A Man Made of Stories. So thank you for everyone for dropping by. You can find us at SheilaNagigblog.com. Thank you.